Saturday, the 15th of August 1992, the start of a new season for English soccer and the inception of the Premier League.
The FA Premier.
No words available to console fans and players at a moment like this. So many great players down the years, some of them Brian Marwood mentioned a few minutes ago. So many great managers have shared glory days at Ellen Road.
The fairy tale season has the happiest ending.
No team ever wants to be relegated, and being promoted, no matter what country you play in, is always an honor. It was a very big deal to be in the English top tier before 1992, but the inception of the Premier League changed the game, not just in England, but across the entire football landscape, across the world. It still has ripple effects today. We're talking Moneyball era, Abramovich buying Chelsea, Sheikh Mansour buying City, PSG getting bought out, Newcastle getting bought out now, the Glazers taking over Man United, etc., etc. But for all the major developments happening around the soccer world today that are worth talking about, such as the influx of Saudi cash into soccer, or the growth of MLS, this era of new money into football has had adverse effects in the land where it all started. The Premier League rebrand and all the money that comes with it now and all the attention is an absolutely lucrative opportunity for any team that gets promoted into it, and a devastating pitfall for any team that gets knocked out of it. The financial implications of promotion and relegation in England means some clubs get relegated and never truly recover. That's why when you make it to the big dance, you better make use of that opportunity, because if you mess up, we might never see you again. When questioning the best promoted sides in Premier League history, you will get results usually based on a single team's performance over a single season. Newcastle United is credited with being the best promoted side in EPL history by finishing third merely 1 year after returning from the second tier. However, I want to discuss this in a more collective way. I've heard discussions about how bad this season's promoted teams are, as the table as it stands sees all three returning to the championship at the first time of asking. That got me thinking. We don't tend to evaluate the skill of promoted sides as a group. We don't think of them as a promotion class, so to speak, like graduates from one division to another. So in this video, I want to go through who the best promotion classes have been in the modern Premier League era. Evaluating a singular team's total performance every time it's promoted is a different discussion when thinking of the best promoted team statistically, although that one is harder to discuss because some teams bounce around more than others, as we'll see very soon.
Life sucks, and then you get relegated.
Either way, let's take a look at every season starting from the modern Premier League rebrand unto the modern day. The first ever promotion class in Premier League history, the class of 1992, were Middlesbrough, Ipswich, and Blackburn. They combined for a total of 167 points. Blackburn finished 4th that season, accounting for 71 of those points. Ipswich was 16th, and Middlesbrough was 2nd last. And that's a lot of points. Enough points to be the best, actually. However, there's a caveat here. The first 3 seasons of the Premier League had 22 teams, as opposed to today's 20. So the promoted teams of those days had far more opportunities to get points. The 4th season, the 95-96 season, was the first of the reshuffling to 20. Therefore, only 2 teams were promoted in that season. So the first 4 seasons kinda have to be exempt because it wouldn't be fair to all the other teams that had less matches. So there'll be 2 categories, I guess, pre-reshuffle and post-reshuffle. I guess the 95-96 class of Bolton and Middlesbrough just have to exist in a space in between, a purgatory amongst the 2 categories. So in the first 3 seasons, the best class was easily the first, with the classes incrementally getting worse in the next 2 seasons. After the reshuffle, this is where things get spicy. The best promoted class was the new Millennium class of 2000-2001. Charlton Athletic, Manchester City, and Ipswich Town have the best performing trio of promoted teams by points in modern Prem history, with a total of 152 points. It's crazy that even when they were dog shit, Manchester United were setting Premier League records, although they did the least work in this pile, getting relegated in 3rd from bottom. Ipswich Town finished 5th and secured a Europa League spot, with Charlton comfortably in mid-table in 9th. Despite being the best promoted class in terms of points, they are not the best promoted class in terms of actual survival. That came the season after, with Fulham, Blackburn, and Bolton all surviving the drop, a first in Premier League history. However, this only puts them in 5th place in total points on 130. This goes to show how the quality of competition and the consistency of the clubs involved, who isn't injured, and even changes in the tactics of the game, can impact a promotion class's performance. Now, who finished ahead of the 01-02 class? The class from 10 years later, the 2010-2011 promotion class, Newcastle, West Brom, and Blackpool, are the 3rd best promotion class in history, although mostly off the backs of West Brom and Newcastle, who both survived. Blackpool was not so lucky. Taking silver in 2nd though, we have to rewind a bit to the first ever promotion class of the 20-team era, the 96-97 promotion class. Sunderland, who we will see a lot of in this video, Leicester, and Derby County, who really live in the extremes on this list,
skip,
were the clubs involved, with only Sunderland going straight back down that season, finishing 3rd from bottom. Right in front of the survival class of 01-02 are the 11-12 class on 131 points. Ironically, the first survival class was overthrown by the second. The 2011-12 season was only the 2nd time in Premier League history that all 3 promoted clubs survived relegation at the first time of asking. QPR, Norwich, and Swansea City were the overachievers in this regard. QPR survived by the skin of their teeth after their infamous defeat to City. You know, the one that featured that Aguero goal. They avoided the drop by a single point. The ascended Swansea finished in 11th, with Norwich right behind them on goal difference. The most recent promotion class, discounting the ones currently fighting as of the recording of this video, are in a comfortable 6th place. Just good enough for a fake, hypothetical Europa League spot. Congrats, guys. Fulham, Bournemouth, and Nottingham City make up that class, with all 3 surviving. Man City appears again in 7th, as they were part of this promotion class that season alongside West Brom and Birmingham City, at 125 points. Now, we have a bunch of classes tied in the standings. I'm not going to bother with goal difference stats and shit, but I will bother with something else later in this video as a sort of tiebreaker between all of the classes in this video. But these points tied classes all have 121 total points. 05-06, which featured a record low 15-point Sunderland team.
Totally made up. Pure fiction. It's fiction. It's fiction. We made it up. We made this one up. It's a made-up tale. It's a total fabrication.
06-07, 15-16, and 17-18. After this, we get into a congested mid-table zone with a bunch of classes only separated by a few points. Now, the lower echelons, the worst of the worst. In 15th, we have the COVID class of 2019-20. This crop of clubs, Norwich, Sheffield United, and Aston Villa, had their season interrupted midway by the pandemic and had to return playing in empty stadiums. This definitely had an effect on their performance, but even with that setback, they are far from the worst. While Norwich was bottom and Aston Villa survived by a point, Sheffield, who are notoriously bad these days, actually finished a comfortable 9th. In 16th, we go back to the 97-98 season, where Bolton, Barnsley, and Crystal Palace only averaged 108 altogether. 17th goes to the class of 14-15, Leicester, who did the impossible only a season later, Burnley, and QPR. The latter two went straight back down, 104 total points. 18th is the class of 16-17, Burnley, Middlesbrough, and Hull with 102 points. 19th, and beginning our fake relegation zone, is the 04-05 class of Norwich, West Brom, and Crystal Palace. They are the last team on this list to get 100 total points together. Second from bottom is the 2021-22 class of Norwich, Watford, and Brentford, who only managed 91 altogether. Only Brentford made it out alive in that one, finishing 13th with 46 points, contributing over half of the trio's collective points. Dead last is the infamous class of 07-08, managing only 85 total points, featuring Sunderland, who actually survived that season. Then in second last was Birmingham with a mere 35. Then there's the relegated elephant in the room, or relegated ram in the room, I suppose. Derby County and their miserable 11-point season tanked the class's total points record. Derby to this day has the Premier League record low for points for any club in Prem history, and of course, the worst for any promoted team. They broke Sunderland's promoted team and Prem record of 15 only 2 seasons later, and to this day are the worst side in Premier League history. So this is our table. The 01-02 promotion class was easily the best, while the 07-08 promotion class was easily the worst. However, this isn't the end of our story. We know that in soccer, your local league is not the only competition you're going to play in. There are still multiple competitive tournaments you have to play in which winning or getting far in them can get you cash prizes, and most importantly, places in continental competitions. So while placing well in your league is the most important thing, it is not the end-all be-all of a team's season. Some teams even get relegated and win a cup competition in the same season, like Wigan in 2013. So how are we going to incorporate the FA Cup and the League Cup in these standings? So my own arbitrary rules are as follows. In the FA Cup, Premier League and Championship teams enter in the third round. Getting through the third round into the fourth will be 5 points. Getting through the fourth into the fifth will be an additional 10. From the fifth into the sixth, 15. Getting a spot at Wembley in the semis will be an additional 20, and getting to the final will be 25. Winning the whole damn thing will be 35. The League Cup will be as follows. It tends to be a lower intensity tournament until you get to the final 8 or so, and the pool of teams is smaller with only teams in the first 4 divisions allowed to participate. So every round advanced will be just 5 points until the 6th round, aka the quarters. Making the quarters will be 10 points. The semis will be 15, and a place in the final is 20. Winning the whole thing will be 30. Keep in mind that in my rules, these points stack every time you advance. Just like last time, we'll split this into 2 sections, because teams before 1995 will have an advantage for having more teams in the Premier League. So let's calculate the best in the 22-team era. I wrote those last 2 sentences before I started calculating. I've realized that these teams' advantages don't really mean much when the cups are taken into account. You'll see why in a few minutes. The first FA Cup campaign for our newly promoted trios are from the 92-93 season. Blackburn went all the way to the 6th round, meaning they earned 25 points for their class. Ipswich did the same, earning another 25, and Middlesbrough only advanced once, so only got another 5 for the class, putting the inaugural promotion class at 232 points. Now, how did they do in the League Cup? Ipswich made it to the quarters, and Blackburn went to the semis. Middlesbrough got bounced in the second round, where the Prem teams enter, so no points for them. This takes the inaugural class total to 297. So this is a glimpse into my process. I won't make you guys listen to the details for every single season because I'm assuming you don't want to be here all day. I did the boring math for you. Here are the totals with the FA and League Cup taken into consideration. The inaugural promotion class is top of the crop among the 22-team era, and here's the Void era score as well. Looking at the predominant 20-team era, we can go to a few notable seasons. The record-setting 2000-2001 promotion class was spearheaded by Ipswich Town, the East Anglian side who traditionally rival Norwich, another team which is very familiar with bouncing around the divisions. In their Prem season, they finished 5th in the European places. They also made the semi-finals of the League Cup and advanced 1 round in the FA Cup, accounting for an additional 50 of their class's 90 cup points, putting the class's total at 242. This puts them above the 93-94 and 94-95 promotion classes, the ones with 22 teams. The very next season, the one where all three teams in a promotion class survived for the first time, is even more insane. Blackburn Rovers finished 10th in the Prem, respectable for a newly promoted side. In the FA Cup they advanced 2 rounds, decent, then they won the damn League Cup. They went through Oldham Athletic, Middlesbrough, pre-Money Man City, an Arsenal team near the height of their powers, Sheffield Wednesday, and then beat Spurs in Cardiff in the finals. My god, even back then Spurs were making absolute memes of themselves. From the League Cup, Blackburn earned a full 95 points for their class, plus an additional 15 for their FA Cup run. The League Cup winning team featured American legend Brad Friedel between the sticks, Damien Duff, and a grizzled, older Andy Cole. Mark Hughes was still playing back then as well. On the Tottenham side, future delusional manager Tim Sherwood took the pitch, as well as Ledley King and Les Ferdinand. Glenn Hoddle's Tottenham were put to the sword by Graham Souness's Blackburn, with goals from Matthew Jansen and Andy Cole. Fulham started their season with their owner Mohamed El Fayed claiming they would win the Premier League upon their promotion. They didn't do that, but they finished a respectable 13th, and more importantly for this video, they finished the FA Cup with a semi-final appearance and a 4th round exit from the League Cup, earning 55 points for their class. Bolton Wanderers, who also started the season with a claim about winning the title, though Big Sam Allardyce was bantering as he likes to do, were the biggest underachievers in their class, finishing in 16th and exiting the FA and League Cup at the 4th and 5th rounds respectively, earning only 20 points for their class. This puts the 01-02 class at 315 total points, and the 01-02 promotion class is above all 3 of the 22 team season classes, meaning this class is truly class. While Blackburn's title win was extremely impressive, they were not the first team to do it. They had actually been beaten to the punch on League Cup glory by about 5 years. The 96-97 class featured Derby County, Sunderland, and Leicester City, who won that season's League Cup by going through Scarborough FC, York City, Manchester United only a few years off from a Champions League victory, Ipswich Town, Wimbledon, and Middlesbrough in the final. In that final, we see another American goalkeeper winning silverware with a newly promoted side. Casey Keller was between the posts for the Foxes that night at Wembley, while their 10 outfielders featured some familiar names, such as Emil Heskey, who scored an extra-time 118th minute equalizer after Middlesbrough took the lead in the very first minute of that extra time.
Pryor lifts one forward. Walsh, the captain, is playing like another centre forward now and finds Robbins. He'll do well to make his cross, and Walsh is there again and heads it back. Heskey! Clarence! It's in, is it? It is! Unbelievable! Leicester have scrambled an equaliser with minutes to go!
Back then, the title was not decided by penalties, so there was actually a replay in Sheffield, in which Leicester finally put down Borough with a 100th minute extra time winner by Stephen Claridge.
Looks tired in the kick-ins, but he's just got that air about him. But here he is, and he's done it! Claridge has scored for Leicester!
The Leicester squad also featured Neil Lennon and Turkish international Mustafa Izzet. They defeated a Borough team consisting of Aussie keeper Mark Schwarzer, Nigel Pearson, Emerson, Juninho, no, not that one, and prolific striker Maurizio Ravanelli. The Foxes were coached by accomplished Northern Irish manager Martin O'Neill, while Middlesbrough were managed by Brian Robson. Their classmates didn't fare so well. Sunderland was bounced from the 3rd round of both the FA and League Cups, and Derby was ousted in the FA Cup quarters, while being eliminated at the first hurdle in the 2nd round of the League Cup, meaning this class only sits at 263 total points. Right behind this class in 4th is the 05-06 class, the one with a then record PL low, with Sunderland's 15. While Sunderland themselves didn't do much, their classmates in West Ham and Wigan Athletic picked up the slack. West Ham made the finals of the FA Cup, losing to a very talented Liverpool team. Wigan made the League Cup final, losing to Premier League champion of that season, Manchester United. The COVID class actually goes up to 7th from their previous 15th as a result of their cup performances. Now let's talk about a class that's been put in a peculiar position as a result of the time in which they came up. The 1995-96 promotion class of Bolton and Middlesbrough reached 102 points with cups taken into account. While their class having one last team meant less points by default, it obviously meant that they would be at the bottom. But they're not at the very bottom. That dishonor goes to the infamous 07-8 class featuring Derby, Birmingham, and Sunderland. Even with cup games to boost their points, they only reached 95, finishing dead last under a promotion class with only 2 teams. Derby only advanced once in the 2 cup competitions, crashing out to 2nd Division Preston North End in the FA Cup at home, 4-1. In the League Cup, they were defeated on penalties by a 2nd Division Blackpool. Birmingham were knocked out of the FA Cup by a 3rd Division Huddersfield in the 3rd round, and only advanced 1 round in the League Cup before being taken out by Blackburn Rovers. Sunderland's FA Cup run was stopped at the first obstacle, that obstacle being Wigan, who beat them 3-0 at the Stadium of Light. Their League Cup campaign also ended at the first opportunity as they were defeated by Luton Town in the 2nd round. This makes the 2007-8 promotion class the most disastrous class in the history of the Premier League's modern era, and it's not even close. And there we have it. There are an absolute metric ton of stories to tell from all of these seasons, but since most of us have jobs and or school to attend to, I had to cut some for time. Before we go, here's a final chart to send us off. We know that some teams really like to yo-yo up and down the divisions. A lot of you already have a club in mind the second you even hear the term yo-yo club. I tend to think of teams like Levante and Empoli in Serie A. And there's one of the poster boys of yo-yoing themselves, West Brom. But in the Premier League, who yo-yoed the most? 41 different teams have been promoted into the Premier League. The aforementioned West Brom and Norwich are tied for the most promotions back into the Premier League in the modern era, at 5 apiece. Funny enough, all of both teams' promotions happened after the new millennium. Behind them are Middlesbrough, Watford, Sunderland, and Fulham on 4. Then there's this mass of teams on 3. Ipswich is on 2, but seemingly on course to make that 3 this season. Here are the other teams on 2. And sitting at only 1 promotion are Leeds, Portsmouth, Villa, Swindon, Huddersfield, Charlton, Barnsley, Swansea, Wigan, Brentford, Southampton, Stoke, and Blackpool. A few of these teams went down very soon after their 1 promotion. Blackpool only lasted that 1 promotion season in 2010-11 and have never been back since. Huddersfield was only around a season or 2 if I remember correctly, and then went back down, and they haven't been back either. Other teams were promoted in and had quite extensive runs before being relegated back down. Wigan was promoted in 05-06 and lasted until 2013. Southampton had a decent run. Stoke became somewhat legends for being a tough team to play, even when they were in relegation battles. And Swansea had a legendary run that included a League Cup victory. While in the case of Aston Villa, they were relegated but came back up and seem to be on course to stay a while if their current form holds. As of right now, the only 2 of these mentioned teams that are still in the Premier League are Brentford and Villa. Thank you for taking this journey with me. Perhaps if I'm feeling enough self-loathing, then I can try something like this for the entirety of the English First Division, or maybe try this for a different league. A quick little thing before we go. I've started a journey to see my favorite club in every country in the world. Links in the description for details. Thank you for watching.